Hey, what's up, everybody? We have a new YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe right now. Leave a comment on the video. Share it with your friends. It's also a podcast, 3 and Out, wherever you listen with me, John Middlekauff, Apple, Spotify. We have you covered, as well as thevolume.com. We have merch. Check out. I got 3 and Out hats right now. Thevolume.com. Search the podcast. Buy some merch. Okay, let's dive into the mailbag. At John Middlekauff is the Instagram. At John Middlekauff is the Instagram. Fire in those DMs and get your question answered here on the show. Is it irrational to think that the NFC winner needs to blow out their opponent in order to prove that they won't get smoked by whoever's coming out of the AFC? Well, I think the Lions and obviously the Niners can play with the Chiefs, like this version of the Chiefs, given that, they just struggle to score. Like, they're not exactly explosive offense. But I do think the Ravens, I'm talking to Stuckey. We usually record on Thursday. That'll come out on Friday. Last week, we kind of did some potential matchups, and the 49ers would have been favored before the second round against the Ravens. I think that's crazy. To me, right now, we've already seen them play. What we just witnessed of the 49ers, regardless how they look, if the Ravens win on Sunday, they have to be the favorite in the Super Bowl. They could not be getting points. So I think it would be like, yeah, I think the Niners or Lions could be the Chiefs. I think the Ravens, if they play their A game, are going to be very, very tough to beat because how good their defense is and their offense is explosive. Now, it doesn't mean like the Niners can win that game. The Niners are actually suited, if Debo's healthy, for a dome. Their explosive offense, how just their quarterback's comfortable in a dome. So, not like I would count them out. The Lions, their pass defense is so terrible. Would be a lot more difficult against the Ravens. They would be probably a touchdown underdog. Maybe more. Maybe less. 6.5, 7 points. Love the show. Appreciate you. Obviously, football is brutal and exhausting, and players can get gassed, especially at the end of games. Is it regular practice for teams to pound caffeine or energy drinks during games? I think the short answer there is no. This is not baseball where you see guys drinking Red Bulls all the time because of the sweat maybe sweat a little less, I guess, in freezing cold temperatures, but you can have I think a diuretic. I'm no trainer here, medical professional, but you don't, as someone who I'm addicted to caffeine, but you couldn't drink caffeine drinks and afford to get a cramp during the thing. So I would say no. You're talking about some of the greatest athletes in the world, and I think that's why nutrition and hydration are so big for these guys, eating the right foods and drinking the proper fluids, which typically is like water and electrolytes and the right type of intake on game day. I would imagine young guys, rookies, whatever, but any veteran player, very, very strict on what these guys are eating, right? And putting into their body in general. And caffeine mid-game, like a Red Bull, even if it was sugar-free, that's not happening. Good question, though. You and I would need them. Don't get me wrong. I think Burrow is a great NFL quarterback. However, I do think he's a tad overrated. I would take Lamar, Allen, Love, and Caleb Williams over him. I think he's too injury prone. And then Jake Browning stepped in and had better stats. I would love to know your top 5 quarterbacks in order. I can't. One injury. I know he got injured his rookie season, but the back-to-back seasons was that his third season of going to the Super Bowl and last year going toe-to-toe with Mahomes in Kansas City, who ended up winning the Super Bowl. I can't just write him off. Caleb Williams? I don't know. I can't go that far. I can't. Jordan Love over Joe Burrow? I saw Joe Burrow. Guy was winning the Super Bowl in the fourth quarter and playing well. So I would have Mahomes number 1, and then depending on how they're playing, some order of Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and Joe Burrow. Again, Joe Burrow's got to be healthy. If you tell me Joe Burrow's misses the next season with another injury, okay, then I would hear it. Let's just see how, I saw Joe Burrow this year healthy. He put up like 35 points on the 49ers with his eyes closed. He's fucking good. So I'd pump the brakes there a little bit, but given right now that he's injured, it would have to be Mahomes, Lamar, and Allen. Listen, I would take Josh Allen over Lamar, but if you took Lamar over Josh Allen, I'm not going to argue with you. I still think Josh Allen, how good he was the other night. And you can be like, well, his stats, I don't know. What I witnessed, I've been watching sports for 30 plus years. That's as good as it gets. I mean, it doesn't get much better than the way I thought he was playing. I'm not saying he's perfect. He's going to miss some plays. I think he's a pretty special player. Lamar wins this game. It's going to be hard, be hard not to pick him. But I think those guys have separated from the class. Their physicality, their toughness, their mental toughness, their ability to play in cold weather. My wonderful wife is sending this message on my behalf. Heading to San Francisco for the game this weekend. Have fun. First ever Niners game. What's a good spot near the stadium to try and catch the AFC Championship prior to the game? Well, the shitty part about where the Niners, and listen, I'm not a big South Bay guy. I live on the other side of the Bay Bridge. From the Sacramento area, lived in Walnut Creek, lived in Emeryville. Like I don't really do the South Bay, though I like Palo Alto and Stanford. That area is kind of an industrial. There are some hotels. There's like a big Hilton. I would guess go to one of the hotels, but this isn't like Philadelphia where there's a bunch of sports bars around it. It's not really the setup. So whenever I've gone to a game, I guess a lot of times, back in the way, a long time ago, I used to have a media pass. I would just go watch the game upstairs, but I would, I guess, try to go to one of the hotels. But depending on where you're parking, it can be a little complicated. It's not a great setup for that, to be honest with you. So I don't really have a great answer because it's not like there are a bunch of bars there on the strip. It's not really, just not how it works. And you can't kind of go around the corner to a bar because parking is such a shit show. So I guess what I would try, if you really want to watch the AFC Championship game, get there. What time does the game kick off? 3:30 Pacific Standard Time. Maybe try to get there like 11-ish and try to weasel your way into one of the hotel bars. Honestly, I've never even been to the hotel, so I don't know how great the hotel bar is. But I would Google and look into that. DraftKings Sportsbook, an official betting partner of the NFL playoffs, is bringing you an offer to help make the playoffs electrifying. New customers can bet $5 on any game and get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook now and use code JOHN. New customers can bet $5 to get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook with code JOHN JOHN. The crown is yours. Question for you, as a Commanders fan and not having much to be excited about in the last 30 years, if Adam Peters ends up hiring a defensive-minded head coach, should the fans trust Peters with the decision and still be excited about a fresh start? Listen, Adam Peters now has had a front row seat with Bill Belichick. He worked in the office for a long period of time. And then he went with John Elway and was around John Fox and then Kubiak, who won the Super Bowl with Peyton. And then for the last, 6-7 years, every day of practice that I've ever went to, Adam's right there with John Lynch and Kyle in the middle of the field. And obviously he goes hand in hand with John Lynch. So he's a front row seat with Kyle Shanahan, but he also got to be around D'Amico and Robert Saleh and Bobby Slowick and Mike McDaniel. So I think he's got a pretty good idea what to look for in a head coach. From Belichick to Elway to now Lynch and Kyle and all the guys coming under the 49ers, I would give him the benefit of the doubt. I really would. Listen, I'm biased. I consider Adam a friend. I think he's a stud. I think you should be fucking thrilled that he accepted your job. Initially, I was irritated by all the shows and Colin's feed was sending me. But once I found your show, I realized it was worth it. Sound like my girlfriend. Do you think Kyle is obligated to bring back Wilkes if they make or win the Super Bowl? I don't think he's terrible, but it's hard to watch the Niners get run all over and not register any sacks. I got news for you. I'm not a huge Steve Wilkes guy relative. Now, I've seen D'Amico the last 2 years, and I think D'Amico is a superstar. He's not getting fired, one. And two, this kind of a personnel problem. Armstead's old, and he's banged up. Chase Young, seems like a good guy, kind of not very good at football. Not anywhere near the number 2 overall pick. Javon Kinlaw is an all-time bust. Might be injuries or whatever, but he's not any good. So you have a lot of play, and Hargrave is like an elite role player. Like if Armstead was healthy and they had another good defensive end beside Nick Bosa, Hargrave would dominate. And obviously he's a Pro Bowl level player, but he can't just like he won't just turn into some, I don't even know, like Ndamukong Suh. Like he can just stop the run. Or I'm trying to think of like a big defensive tackle. They're the Ravens guys, like just big lumbering. He's small. He's a pass rusher. So the run, not stopping the run, is more of an indictment, in my opinion, on the defensive lineman. Like Bosa's good against the run. And Fred Warner, while he's an elite chase guy inside to side, like he can't, if you get a body on him, he's not, this isn't like Levon Kirkland coming downhill. Old school reference for my younger folk. Question. Do you think Jalen Hurts' great season might just be an outlier? Because without the 2022 season, all his college and pro has just been okay. I would say I'd be a little nervous about that if I was the Eagles. I would. Now, I'm one of those people that was not very high on him coming out of college. I just didn't think he could throw the ball well enough. I thought he was much more inclined to like be a running back in the NFL. And then I watched last season and he shut me up. I was like, God, and then obviously the character, the work ethic, the toughness. I'm like, I like those type guys. I have never have an issue coming around on a player. Once as you get to know him, all the character stuff, you're like, this guy stands for everything I want in a player. Toughness, work ethic, desire, coachability. So I will gravitate toward those guys. But it does seem like he's just sitting in the pocket throwing the ball. Like, it can be a little hit or miss, which was one of the knocks on him in college. Like he's not a true pocket quarterback. He's more of a playmaker. And then what happened this year? As the season went on, they were like running him less. Like I watched Lamar at any moment, like they still run him. Like part of one of Jalen's best attributes is running. For the Middlekauff mailbag, should the Chiefs fire Matt Nagy after the struggles on offense this season if they do not win this weekend? I got news for you. If Andy Reid were to retire, I think they would hire Matt Nagy to be their next head coach. College teammates with Brett Veach. The quarterback swears by him. Matt Nagy would be the next coach of the Chiefs. I'm pretty confident on that. So not only were they not going to fire him, they love Matt Nagy in Kansas City. I was thinking about this the other day. Now, bias on this one as well. Matt Nagy's a friend. Love the guy. Bald brother. I guess he inherited him. He got there. Mitch Trubisky was his quarterback. I'm not saying Nagy's tenure was perfect. I'm not defending. We all watched the games. They were Mitch Trubisky. We saw Mitch Trubisky this year almost got Mike Tomlin fired. Mailbag. Love the show. Question for the bag. Would it be worth it for a team like the Vikings to pick up Derrick Henry's contract? After 10 years, is he worth what he now costs? Also, is there somehow for me to be able to get NFL film? I'm pretty sure that Derrick Henry is just an unrestricted free agent. Like I don't think Derrick Henry is under contract. So I'm pretty sure anyone can sign him. Let me just double check this. Derrick Henry, because part of trading for him, he's an unrestricted free agent. So you do not need to trade for him or anything. I think the question is, what's he going to cost? Like Derrick Henry these last couple years, I mean, since 2020, now he's earned this. He was obviously one of the great running backs, I mean, hell, I've ever seen, but truly of his generation. $15 million, $13 million, $13 million, $12.7 million. Like, he's used to making a lot of coin. Is he just going to be available for $4 or $5 million? Or is he still in his mind? When we saw that last game of the season, he ran for, I forget the exact total, like $155, $160 against the Jags to end their season. Dude can still play. Clearly takes care of his body, very serious about football, high character guy. So I would guess someone gives him like 2 years, $20 million, like 10 a year and guarantees maybe 10. Something like that would be my guess on the contract for him. The NFL film, if you want to watch the all 22, I think you gotta get the NFL. I forget what it's called. I have it to watch all the games. NFL package or not the YouTube TV thing, but the NFL has like NFL Rewind. You can watch all the games back, and they have after usually like on by Tuesday they have the all 22 film. It actually like a lot of people in the media that talk about it make it sound like it's a lot cooler than it is. I don't think you'd watch probably as much as you think you would, I guess is what I'm saying. I'm not a 49er fan, but due to serving in Hawaii, I only get the California teams without paying extra, so I typically watch and root for the Niners. You and Coward often say how you would rather prefer a young head coach to be your offensive play caller. However, I think last Saturday in the Packer versus Niner game proved there's two sides to this since Kyle is the offensive play caller and the head coach, there's no one to radio into the headset and tell him, hey, it's raining. Purdy can't grip the ball. We have Christian McCaffrey. Run the damn thing. I think Kyle should really have someone in that organization that can tell him if something isn't working and get him away from his plan, because oftentimes you're in the fog of war and it can cloud your judgment. I would tend to agree. Like if you're in the battle and the fog of war, whether it be legitimate war or comparing this to football, if it's a super tight game, it could be the difference. That's pretty obvious. Like I can't give him the fog of war. Like his quarterback couldn't grip the ball. He's standing right there and calling all the plays. I mean, he's been an offensive coordinator. He's 44 years old. He's been an offensive coordinator for like 15 years in the NFL. So I think there's a fine line of like, hey, you need someone to tell you when to challenge, when to do certain things. Totally agree. If you can't see, as we all acknowledge, one of the best play callers in the league and one of the best offensive minds, like, hey, Debo's injured. Your quarterback's fucking skipping balls and airmailing them. Let's, I don't know, hand it off to this dude from Stanford who's pretty good that you hand it to all the time. It'd be one thing if, like, well, he just never gives it to Christian for whatever reason. He literally rides him like he's in the Kentucky Derby. That was the craziest part about that game. Question for the show. What's the bigger issue? Purdy's physical limitations going forward as a franchise quarterback, or the immediate concerns on both the O and D lines not winning the line of scrimmage? I ask in the light of the pressure on Shanahan to deliver a Super Bowl. Well, they don't have to make a decision on Purdy for years. Like, you don't even have to extend the guy. Like, they extended the guy for Jalen Hurts after the third year because they thought he was going to be a superstar, right? If they knew he would have been had this year that he just had, they wouldn't have done it because they would have got him at cheaper price this season. Like, to me, they don't even need to pay Purdy for a couple years. So, like, his physical limitations kind of are what they are. Like, we know, we see him. His arm strength is not going to change. His ability to grip in the rain so far has been pretty consistent. They have invested so much in the defensive line. Their defensive line coach, there's a decent chance Stoutland with the Eagles, it wouldn't shock me if he makes like $3 or $4 million as the O-line coach. I would imagine their defensive line coach, Chris Kasarik in San Francisco, is a top 5 paid position coach. Makes millions of dollars a year because he's good. But his unit right now is underachieving. Maybe they are what they are now because of their age and their injuries. I don't know. So I would say the biggest concern coming up these next 2 weeks would be the lines, right? You got to handle if you play the Ravens or the Chiefs, their defensive line, Chris Jones, Karlaftis, all the dudes on the Ravens, and defensive line. Like, can you get pressure on either Mahomes or Lamar Jackson? Hell, to beat the Lions, you got to get pressure on Jared Goff. Will you please talk about this one? No one is talking about it. With 1:33 left and only one timeout for the Bucs, on paper, 3 knees should pretty much end the game. The first big mistake is by Goff when he takes a knee on second down with 16 on the play clock and 106 in the game. The Buccaneers could have used their timeout here, and they would have got the ball back with 20 seconds left. You can actually see Dan Campbell realize their mistake at this point as he puts his headset back on, trying to act nonchalant as to not make Tampa aware. Goff then inexplicably makes an even bigger mistake by snapping the ball with 14 seconds left on the play clock on third down and taking a knee at 37 seconds. He must have thought they were out of timeouts. Bucs could have called the timeout and got the ball back with roughly 30 seconds. Yeah, I saw Florio writing about this today. You just stupid. I mean, no way around it. when you get into a position at the end of the game under 2 minutes and you have the ball and the other team has a limited amount of timeouts, under no circumstances can you ever snap the ball with anything more than 4 or 5 seconds on the clock. To snap the ball in the teens when you're a quarterback of Goff's experience and have Ben Johnson is inexcusable. Maybe I was in a fog during that. Maybe once they won, I walked into once Baker threw the pick, I walked into my office. I don't totally remember, but watching it live, I didn't feel like, having read about it today and seeing yours. But yeah, it can't happen. You cannot snap the ball if you're just going to kneel the ball with anything. I mean, ideally, like 2 seconds, right? You give yourself a little leeway. You don't want to get delayed games, but 2 seconds. Anytime that you're snapping the ball and there's double digits on the play clock, it's just like, what are we doing, guys? As a Dolphins fan, I was all in tanking for Tua, but I have finally seen the light. By no means do I think he's bad, but we're just not beating the elite in the AFC with him. With cap issues, should the Finns start a hard reset? Tired of being mediocre. Just what teams do that? What teams have made the playoffs in back-to-back seasons and go, yeah, it's time for a hard reset? That's what the media loves teams to do in the NBA. Like, why don't you just blow it up? Well, yeah, it's easy for you to say. We run a business. We need fans to watch our games. We don't want to suck. Plus, there is no guarantee. Like, I believe that Bears should and will draft Caleb Williams. I think it's the right decision. There's no guarantee that he's just going to become Mahomes or Josh Allen or Jalen Hurts even. Hell, is he going to have Jared Goff's career? Who knows? We've seen over and over. We thought Trevor Lawrence was the next Andrew Luck. By year 3, it's like, what's up with this guy? He's terrible. So I don't know, man. I think you roll it back in next year. He plays on a 5th-year option, and you just see where it goes. It's almost on a year-by-year situation. That's better than sucking. It really is. Because the other thing is, your coach is pretty good offensive mind, that even if you traded him and played with Mike White and Skylar Thompson, like I don't think he would be like the number 1 picking team in the draft. Wouldn't shock me if you drafted like 9th. So it's like, what was all this for? We're winning 6 games instead of 9 or 10. I think you would just always rather win 9 or 10. Yeah, you go, we're never going to win the Super Bowl. Who's really winning the Super Bowl? Fucking Mahomes is going every year. And the only guys that have a chance to beat him are like Lamar, Burrow, and Josh Allen. How are you going to acquire that? Where are you going to find it? Try to draft a guy? Well, yeah, you could, but what if he's not that? And you find a guy that's actually worse than Tua. Now, it does get complicated once you have to pay Tua. I have questions for the pod. What does Purdy actually have to do to escape the negative narratives? For months, the narrative has been that we need to see him play from behind. Playing from behind inherently implies that you do not have a great start to a game, since otherwise you wouldn't be in a play from behind situation. I don't know if that necessarily, like Josh Allen had to play from behind in that game, and he was playing well. So I don't think it inherently means that you're not playing well. It just means that you don't have the lead in the 4th quarter. That does not mean you're playing bad. On Sunday against the Packers, we saw Purdy play from behind and bring his team back for the win. The narrative has now shifted to no one talking about how he did not play well in the first part of the game, to how he didn't play well in the first part. Had he played well the whole game, the narrative would still be that we haven't seen him play from behind. I just think he's a very polarizing player because we've talked about this over and over. He's the last pick in the draft. People want to say he sucks. They just do. People do not want to acknowledge that the kid can play. So, like, that is a huge elephant in the room here. No one wants to admit, yeah, he's pretty good. Because most people, everyone changing the goalposts or whatever, like you said, I get exhausted by it. But, like, I think on the most basic premise, they can't go, I think the kid's a really good player. It's like, well, he's not Mahomes. He's not John Elway. But, yeah, we get it. No shit. Those guys were drafted high and made hundreds of millions of dollars. Super Bowl champs, going to Super Bowls, carrying their team. This guy's really good. He's on a really good team. I'm like, yeah, he's a good player. But and this is why the NFL's king, because once you're a quarterback on a really, really good team, whether you're a superstar or whether you're the last pick in the 7th round, we're going to have opinions left and right about you. So I just think it's part of the territory. Ultimately, it's irrelevant. They're in back-to-back NFC championship games with him as a starter. And if they win this game, they will be in the Super Bowl. So I think it's easy for everyone to freak and have all these opinions, but you could also argue, who cares? I mean, simply put, who cares? Does it really matter? The goalposts, the narratives are not going to slow down, though. Whether he wins or loses, they're going to continue. What did Reggie Jackson once famously say? They don't boo nobodies. Like, we usually talk about people that matter, you know? I would say it's better than no one having an opinion on the guy.